Today, we're joined by Jennifer Hyson, a registered apprenticeship consultant with Virginia Works. Amy has talked with Jennifer, and so I will let Amy introduce Jennifer and her topic today.
So Jennifer's here with Virginia Works. Thank you so much for being here, Jennifer, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about registered apprenticeship programs.
Thank you guys for having me. I also have one of our grant team members, Michael Alley, on the call. So just at the end, he can help me answer any questions and give a little bit of information about the current grant that we have. So I'm going to pull up some slides for us. All righty. Okay, so again, I'm Jennifer Hinson, a registered apprenticeship consultant with Virginia Works. So who we are in Virginia Works, we are one of the 28, I think it's actually 29 now, state apprenticeship agencies across the U.S. So this is a federal program. There is a national office of apprenticeship, and then there are also state offices of apprenticeship, and we are one of those state offices. So we are given guidance by the Federal Office of Apprenticeship to operate apprenticeship in Virginia. We are the only organization who can register apprentices and apprenticeship programs in the state, not community colleges, not technical schools, just Virginia Works. And we have consultants across the state. We live and work locally. That's very important to us to make sure we know our communities and can better serve them. So we have for about 85 years been located in the Department of Labor and Industry, but in 2023, we moved over to the new workforce agency, Virginia Works. About 80 programs from across the Commonwealth were brought together to help better support Virginia's workers. So those are programs from the Employment Commission, Department of Labor, community colleges. Anything that is workforce is now located within Virginia Works. So a little bit about registered apprenticeship. What does that mean? There are 7 key elements that we've identified about these programs. So they're all industry-led. They're vetted by industry, and they are aligned with industry standards to make sure that apprentices are trained for highly skilled occupations. Apprenticeships are paid jobs with progressive wages. So apprentices start at a lower pay rate, and as they get trained, as they get competent, their wages increase. They are taught by mentors on the job. The on-the-job training takes place on the work site under the guidance of a mentor who is experienced in the occupation. And while they are not on the job, they are getting supplemental education, either at a technical school, community college, or even education provided by their employer. But it's all based on industry training to make sure that it's a quality program. There is a good amount of diversity in apprenticeship programs. So these programs reflect the community in which they operate, and they can remove some barriers. So folks who previously may not have had access to this occupation because they didn't have the skills or the access to education, these programs make those occupations more available to those people. And quality and safety, I've mentioned that several times. Safety is of the utmost importance in apprenticeship programs. That's a big part of the training that apprentices go through. And we still work closely with the Department of Labor to help ensure safety in our apprenticeship programs. And finally, at the end of an apprenticeship program, apprentices will receive a national journey worker card that says that they are fully competent in their occupation. And even in some occupations, that card can help them get licensed. And that's recognized in all 50 states. So The two legs of an apprenticeship program are on-the-job training and related technical instruction, as I mentioned. So every apprenticeship program has a work process schedule that we'll get a little bit more into in the next slide. But there is a training outline that is designated by the Federal Office of Apprenticeship, and those programs go through at least 1 year of training, or 2,000 hours. The average, I would say, is about 4 years for an apprenticeship program. And the related technical instruction, as I mentioned, can take place at a community college, technical center, or on site, and this is specific to the occupation. They go through at least 144 hours, about 3 classes a week, every year of their apprenticeship. And at the bottom, we just defined a journey worker. So journey worker or journeyman, that means a worker who has attained a level of skill that says they are competent in their trade. So just getting into a few definitions now that we've gotten our framework identified. An apprenticeship sponsor is the employer who is running the apprenticeship program. So they register their apprentices with the state office. Fairly often it is just a single employer who has their own apprenticeship program, but it can also be a group sponsor or multiple employers who come together and share some training or share some education. So there's a few different ways that these programs can be run, but when we say sponsor, that is the employer who owns the program. And apprentices, pretty much anybody can be an apprentice. You must be at least 16 years old and able to work. Generally, apprenticeships are full-time, but part-time is available for our high school students who participate. Many sponsors will require a high school diploma or some other basic entry requirements, but these are all set by the sponsor. They are not set by us. And we've talked a bit about what these programs are, but what kind of positions are good for these programs. So we're looking at, fairly often we're looking at traditional trades. That's where you see apprenticeship historically being used. So that's your plumbers, your electricians. But today apprenticeship can look a lot different. There are over 1,000 different occupations that have been identified by the Office of Apprenticeship, and who they've given training outlines for the state apprenticeship agencies to use. So we've got everything from IT, early childhood education, cosmetology, barbering, and this number will continue to grow as new occupations come into the field and are identified. So we're looking at a lot of these are entry-level positions where someone without a lot of skills can come in and get trained. Positions who are not being filled, so you're having difficulty getting candidates, maybe we can make that into an apprenticeship and remove some of the barriers there. These are also great for succession planning. You have a really highly skilled worker who's about to retire. Let's get an apprentice who can work under them and get some of those skills so that they're not lost when that worker retires. Okay, work process schedule. This is just an example of how we go in and identify what that training outline is going to look like. So there is a library of these on apprenticeship.gov if you ever feel like looking through. These outlines are, they outline all of the major skills that the apprentice will need to learn. They can be time-based, meaning there's a certain amount of time an apprentice needs to work on these skills. They can be hybrid, which means that there is some competency testing as well as a minimum amount of time that an apprentice needs to master these skills, or they can be just entirely competency-based. So that means there is skills testing to make sure that the apprentice has mastered those skills. But all of these outlines, all of these programs are at least 1 year in length. And our RTI providers, that's that supplemental education, which we call related technical instruction. There's a lot of different ways that apprentices can get this education. We'll talk a bit about youth apprenticeship, which takes place in the high schools. But fairly often we see this education at our community colleges or at technical centers. And we even have a few programs where the sponsor has developed a curriculum that they have had approved by our office. And so they deliver the instruction entirely in-house, and the apprentice does not need to go to an accredited school for that. So I mentioned youth apprenticeship. What is this? When high school career and technical education programs are providing the instruction for a registered apprenticeship program, we call those programs youth registered apprenticeship. So those apprentices are usually 16 or 17 years old, juniors or seniors in high school, who are taking a CTE class, and they're offered work release to go and work part-time on their apprenticeship. This is one of the 12 high-quality work-based learning methods identified by the Department of Education. So these students do also get credit when they're in school towards graduation for participating in a youth registered apprenticeship program. And when we have students who start in high school and continue in their program, we might see, a licensed electrician at 21 years old, which I think is pretty cool. They don't have to finish their apprenticeship, but we do see quite a few of them start in high school and then finish all the way through with that same employer. And another option when we're talking about apprenticeship is pre-apprenticeship. So not every apprentice is prepared to begin an apprenticeship. They need to perform professionally in a workplace, and they need to have a baseline of occupational skills. A lot of times they need that baseline of tool handling, baseline of safety. So pre-apprenticeship training provides short-term training, either academic, occupational, or both, to ensure that an apprentice has those skills to enter a registered apprenticeship program and successfully complete one. So they bring them up to that shared baseline of skills. And in addition to building skills, we do see this as a recruitment tool. So the expectation is that pre-apprenticeship programs will feed into full registered apprenticeship programs with a partner employer. Oftentimes we'll have a guaranteed interview at the end of a pre-apprenticeship program. And on the right, you just see some of those key elements of pre-apprenticeship. And at the top, there's also a few federal pre-apprenticeship programs that I've noted, like Job Corps and Youth Build. Those are programs that can lead into full-time apprenticeship programs. And here is just an example. I know it's a bit hard to see, but we have kind of the timeline of what pre-apprenticeship moving into apprenticeship looks like. So they apply for the pre-apprenticeship program, they enter into it, spend 6 to 8 weeks in that program, they complete it, they may get a little credential for having completed it, and then they can either move into a regular career or go into a full-time apprenticeship program and get that additional journey worker credential. So why apprenticeship? This is the big question. Here I'm going to go over some of the basic benefits for any business who participates in an apprenticeship program. It's an opportunity to recruit a diverse and skilled workforce. There is noted improved productivity and minimized cost with apprenticeship programs. So you're starting apprentices off at a lower pay rate, getting them trained in a structured path. And that structured path can also be customized to your specific business. So you're training them in a structured manner, but in one that is customized for your business, so you can create your best employee. And about 90% of apprentices continue employment after completing an apprenticeship. And again, diversity, we're breaking down some of those barriers to allow more of our community to access these jobs. And a few more. These are specific to us at Virginia Works here in Virginia. So we have recently, with the Department of Professional and Occupational Regulation and the Attorney General's Office, clarified some legislation that allows completed registered apprentices to be exempt from state licensure testing in occupations that are licensed by the Board of Contractors. So what that means is your tradesmen, your electricians, HVAC, plumbers, if they complete a registered apprenticeship program and they go to DPOR to get their license, they do not have to sit for the state license test. They apply, provide their completed apprenticeship documents, and they're automatically issued their license. So that is a really great benefit to those apprentices. Funding, we can talk a little bit about this at the end. We have grant funding that is available to some of our programs. There's also other state and federal funding that a training program like a registered apprenticeship program can have access to. So, for example, GI Bill funding. If you have an apprentice who was formerly in the military and has GI Bill, they can use that funding to pay for books or school or training materials like that. And with Virginia Works, we have a really large network of partnerships that we have built in standing up this new agency. So when you come in as an apprenticeship program, you have access to all of these other programs and all of these other resources that Virginia Works now has. And local consultants. We are located in almost every community, and we can come virtually or in person and help a company get from point blank all the way up to a successful program. And a little bit about how we are expanding apprenticeship in Virginia. We have been tasked with increasing the number of registered apprentices across Virginia with a goal of 20,000 apprentices by the end of 2025. This is a goal of Governor Youngkin. So how are we doing this? One of our partners is the Economic Information and Analytics team. They are one of the programs in Virginia Works, and they put together a lot of labor market data that we can use to help really target industries and expand apprenticeship in Virginia. So we're going to take a little bit of a look. So for example, we can look regionally at some of this data. So if I look at the Piedmont region, which includes these counties listed on the slide, including Culpeper, and some of the information that's included in this report that's put together, we have our 50 largest employers, new hires and industries. We can see are folks getting, are there increasing numbers of new hires in an industry? Long and short-term employment projections gives us an idea of what industries we might want to target. And some growth occupations, again, gives us an idea of what areas are going to be important for us to look at when we're developing apprenticeship programs. And just pulling out a bit of that information. So this is looking at those employment projections. So a lot of occupations here have been identified as having long-term growth in the Piedmont region. Looking at this, there's a lot of care economy here. We're seeing that across the state. So that's your home health care, social services, personal care, things like that. That's a rapidly growing industry. And we've got a few others. Maintenance and repair is a big one that we're seeing as well, that has a lot of long-term growth. And another bit of information that we can use is provided by Virginia's Office of Education Economics, and that is the high demand occupations list. Here we've pulled out a few that, that are from the care economy. Like I mentioned, this is one of our target industries for growth at the moment. So we're looking to develop programs in childcare, behavioral counselors, personal care aides, and occupational therapists. So this is something where if consultant is going out and sharing information with their community about registered apprenticeship. They're going to try and get some of these people in the room, some of these childcare practitioners in the room. And with this, I'm going to segue into letting Mike give just a little bit of information about our current grant and what information he can share about that.
Thank you, Jennifer. My name is Michael Alley. I'm the SAFE Lead Generation Specialist for Virginia Works. And the SAFE grant is the State Apprenticeship Expansion Grant. That's where basically different agencies within the country will apply through the Federal Department of Labor. And it's a formula grant that you basically have to submit a 5-year narrative about. This is year 2 of a 5-year grant. Our big targets right now, obviously with the economy and the way everything's going, is early childhood education, because there's a huge issue of not having enough teachers to hold daycares and preschools. That feeds into K through 12 education. We are awarded a $6 million grant in partnership with the Department of Education to orchestrate a Grow Your Own Teacher Apprenticeship Program. We're really excited about that. That's going to be an RFP that's going to be available for different school systems to basically grow their own teachers. We're also focusing on infrastructure in terms of broadband expansion. Obviously, there's a huge expansion across the state. I think we were awarded $1.9 billion in BEAD funding. It's going to different localities for those contracts. And also infrastructure in terms of solar, alternative energy, and also looking towards non-traditional occupations like your personal care, service economy, and even behavioral health. And in terms of that, we're getting ready to have an apprenticeship fund that anyone's going to be able to apply for, especially sponsors, where we're going to be able to provide anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 per apprentice that can be used towards supportive services. They're paying for their tuition for their RTI, coordinating a program, equipment, kind of anything to kind of help add more people to the workforce. This is ongoing, and we will continue to have more funding. And the nice thing about our partnerships is that we have centers across the state. So in some cases, we're able to provide things for underserved communities, underserved people, so we can really combine and have wraparound services.
Thank you, Mike. So just to kind of wrap it all up, apprenticeship is a tool that can help to give workers access to good, high quality paid jobs, and also give employers access to a training tool and access to our resources at the state. And I am the Registered Apprenticeship Consultant for this area. So my information is here on the screen. If you know anyone who is interested in an apprenticeship program, either as a sponsor, as an apprentice, as an education provider, feel free to share my contact information. And if there are any questions, we can take those.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions for Jennifer or Mike?
Yes. Jennifer, Attorney Brad's school superintendent here in Culpeper County. Jennifer, can you tell me how Go Virginia fits into this? And it's the context is a lot of moving parts, and it seems like a lot of change, all for the end goal of, yes, growing the workforce that's retiring. We get all that. I think we're doing a very robust job in that regard, both on the trades front, other fronts, and the teacher front as well. But it seems like a lot of moving parts. At one time in my career, the sole proprietor of workforce development was the VCCS. So can you comment on how things are either coming together or and rather than separating? Because it seems like there are a lot of different silos out there.
Yes.
And we want to make sure we're in the right silo. So I'm not even sure if I had a question there. I'm just trying to get my head around.
Sure, yeah. No, so there is definitely an effort to bring a lot of those silos together. Now they do still exist. So for example, Virginia Works, we are aligning our staff and our programs with the workforce board regions. So there are, I believe, 14 of those regions, and that's going to align with our Virginia Career Work Centers. They are organized by Workforce Board region. And those regions also do align to an extent, I believe, with Go Virginia regions. So you'll have a few Workforce Board regions within a Go Virginia region. Go Virginia does run kind of parallel to what we do. We don't have a whole lot of interaction directly with Go Virginia, but the standing up of Virginia Works as an agency was definitely an effort to start bringing some of those things together. Mike, do you have any comment on Go Virginia or any of this alignment?
I know with the Go Virginia, in a lot of instances, the Go Virginia regions do have some of the same board members in a lot of cases with the workforce boards. Usually some of those workforce board members are going to be a part of the Go Virginia. But for instance, the Go Virginia Region 9, which Culpeper is in, some of the same target sectors like IT, communications, biomedical, biotechnology, manufacturing, those are kind of really aligned with what we're trying to do at the state level. And those are also aligned a lot with economic development. So we're always in continual conversation and trying to break down those barriers within certain aspects of the government. But a lot of us are we're heading towards the right track in the symbionts of cohesion.
Thank you. Just so that you know, the school division here, we have now, thankfully, and thanks to support of both the county and the school board, a full-time 12-month person that's dedicated to work-based learning coordination. So that's all she does. And then certainly this is probably somebody that you know. If not, we'll make that connection. But particularly, I was interested in your presentation where you said with the, I would say, certified apprenticeship program that leads to an exemption for state testing. That is of great interest to us. Anytime we can bypass a test, state test or credential by other proof of the prior knowledge or rigor or whatever, that's a good thing. So that's interesting. I've got my CTE director already excited about hearing that because I asked the question. This may be old news. And she said, I don't think so. So I'm not sure if that's new news, but it's interesting to us. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's technically been in legislation for since like the 90s, I think, but it was not really being operated in the way the legislation said it should be, which is what we have corrected in the past 9 months, I would say. So.
Well, sometimes that requires funding behind it too. Just like the notion of lab schools, well, there's lab school legislation that was ancient, but until 2022, when the governor put some money in the budget for lab schools, which we are, and we are running a lab school for teacher prep, teaching 2 years associate's degree, and then graduate and go to our 4-year partner so that we can get teachers back into our division in that way. So I'm interested, Michael, in what you were talking about, because those funds may be of interest to us to perpetuate that program. That the state money will run out, period, the end, unless it gets into the calc tool and K-12 funding, which is a whole other ridiculous conversation. But the General Assembly, as we speak, they're looking at the funding formula model. So you're nodding your head, and it is. People say school funding is not rocket science. Yes, it is. It is because the state won't change it. Must be something to it. So sorry, I'll shut up.
Any other question? Amy, yes, good. Jennifer, Mike, can we get this presentation to share out with the group?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Very good. Well, so I work at UVA Health Culpeper Medical Center, and we are working with the school system on a regional partnership to increase our pipeline for healthcare workers. So seeing occupational therapists, physical therapists, that is a major need for us. We've had 9 positions open for more than a year, some a year and a half. And so that is something that I'm going to take back to our HR and discuss. And Mike, the grant process is also interesting as we're working with Culpeper County Public Schools, Germanic Community College, and Claude Moore Foundation to start a regional partnership. And we are going to be hiring a position as a project manager that is going to be the liaison between those entities and also bringing in Orange County Public Schools and hopefully in the future, Madison and Rappahannock to increase the pipeline. So this is something that I think that we will explore as well. So thank you for the information.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks,
Oh,
guys.
and we have one more question from Chip.
So just a quick question. So I'm a banker by day, and I work with a lot of the trades, and certainly I'm now a new term, care economy, because we do see a lot of that in my travel. So if I'm, a lot of times when I'm meeting with one of our customer or member, in my case, employment is the most difficult piece to their puzzle, and they're struggling with that and so forth. So we have a CT school here and made great strides on different professions. But this is new, hearing this is new to me. Should I go to my customer and say, hey, I've had this neat presentation. I learned about apprenticeships. Do I point them in your direction, as a small business, and or should they circle through the CT program that will know about this, that kind of thing, depending on the industry, I suppose.
Yeah, so there's definitely only going to be certain industries that would be relevant for those students in CTE. And I would say, honestly, both and is a good way. So I can definitely connect folks with work-based learning contacts in school systems if they're not already connected. But I'd say most school systems will have, a little form if you're interested in becoming a partner of the school system. So I always recommend going and checking that out, seeing if you can fill something out so you can get in the loop on those opportunities. But I'm also a great resource to kind of explain what does that look like to work with the high school and offer youth registered apprenticeship to students from a high school. So I would say both is a good path.
Thank you.
Contributors, you even talking about like potential sponsors.
Yeah. Well, no, it would be, yeah,
Adult.
right. That's right.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
So
Yeah, I'm talking about
You're
the
about
business.
sponsors.
Hmm.
So sponsors, like the business beginning an apprenticeship
Correct.
program, yes.
Yeah. Yes, I'm talking about the business owners that are struggling with their employment, looking at another avenue for maybe
Yeah.
feeding their smaller
Yeah.
pipeline.
Yeah, and I have quite a few. I also work pretty closely with Hanover County in the capital region, and I have quite a few small businesses who every single year they bring on a couple high school students from the local school, and that is definitely helped their bottom line, helped their pipeline, because they know they can get really good quality students from these schools.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? Jennifer, Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. Great
Thank
information. Certainly learned something. Wonderful to know that the state is working on this issue. So we really appreciate it. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much, guys.
you.
I will send over the presentation and you guys will have that for your use.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then we'll make sure that Amy gets that out to everybody here. We have a few
Alrighty.
minutes, so we will go through we do have quorum now, so if we